The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and for the 300th time on a main show, I'm Ken Knapsack.
And I'm Joseph Scrimshaw, also for the 300th time on the main show. I love that we have to specify main show because it's been a lot more than 300 altogether.
Pushing towards, or I think we're past 900, racing towards 1,000 total broadcasts. And then I'm sure someone will have an Excel sheet of the rare times you or I miss the main show. And someone will be like, hey, it's 297. And that's probably true, too. But for the most part, we've been here 300 main show episodes. And I always feel, Joseph, I don't want to say it's a cheat, but we used to do every other week with the main show, then weekly. And then we decided to break up news and deep dives, and we count them as each in the numbers for the main show. So, you know, we've been piling on, but in our 6th year of doing this, it counts. And we're going to celebrate that just in spirit today.
Absolutely. Yeah. The numbers accelerated a lot now that we have 2 main shows a week. And yeah, it is like, you know, when I think, had our 50th episode or our 100th episode, it really did feel like, whoa, we really need to mark that. Now it's like 300. It'll be 600 2 weeks from now, which is a fun place to be in. But I did for myself, Ken. I haven't finished my coffee. So I did put just a tiny little bit of whiskey in it to toast our 300th episode. Previously, we've planned whole special anniversary episodes. For this episode, I put just a little bit of whiskey in my coffee.
Some whiskey coffee. I have, oh gosh, I don't know how long coffee and whiskey keeps. But I had a gift given to me from the Ryan Elliott, the great cameraman over at the Defy Screen Junkies when I was over there, and his friend created a whiskey coffee. And
Ooh.
I think you were at my house for like my 40th, and I had it. And I think I opened it up, and we all just took a sniff. I don't. We all rejected it. But I still, I still want to try. I still have it. I don't know how long. I don't know. Might be a little bad, but we'll see.
Well, I think we should absolutely save that for the 600th episode of the main show.
There you go. That's
but for now, cheers to you for doing this for a long time and having lots of fun doing it.
Hey, what started as, hey, you want to keep talking some Star Wars? Man, just turned to some. And even today, I was thinking about it today. Still nearly 1,000 episodes, 6 years. I'm still learning new things about Star Wars, or discovering things, or focusing on things that I didn't even last month. And that's been part of the journey. So a lot of fun. And we hope you listen and experience that as well.
Yeah.
We're going to dive into the news in a bit, but before we do, we want to remind you that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. We've got a ForceCenter recommends an audiobook we think you should try out on us coming up in a bit. And Joseph, another offer that potentially could be really good now.
That is right. We have another offer that we can give from Insight Editions. They are a publisher of a ton of great Star Wars books. They are offering 35% off across their website with a special ForceCenter code, so you can get your discount 2 different ways: by entering the coupon code FC35, or you can visit the website with this specific link, insighteditions.com/discount/FC35. And they have many great Star Wars books that we've been highlighting. This week, we're recommending one of my very favorite Star Wars books. It's the Insight Editions book, Secrets of the Jedi. There's a reason I'm returning to recommending this book, which we will talk about later in the episode. So I am going to stop myself now and save some of my just praise for Secrets of the Jedi in a bit. But for now, if you want to check out Inside Editions and get a great discount, you can check it out with FC35.
FC35. Indeed, we are going to catch up. Star Wars Adventures, Life Adventures. We kind of already toasted to 300, but that's on our notes as well. And I'm a little embarrassed, Joseph, that you're actually doing the toasting and got water.
Well, I added this to the notes and forgot to discuss it with you in any way. Of just
Well, that's the other thing. We're the familiarity, the trust across the microphones. We've been doing this now for over a year, roughly now, of uh, of not seeing each other. Even though Zencaster now, we record mostly on Zencaster for those keeping score at home, and they now have, they've revamped and they got a camera thing, and both you and I were like, no, click that off.
Yeah, there's just something, I'm glad that the video exists. I'm glad it works for people and it's allowing us to stay connected in general in society. But there's always a little bit of an uncanny valley for me of like, does Ken need to see my bedhead hair? Is that really what he wants?
Yes, but also no, because I don't want you to have to see me in my tank top and a beanie here. So, there's the beautiful picture of the ForceCenter team talking to all of you. 300 main shows. Been a lot of fun. But Joseph, this past week, Star Wars Adventures, Life Adventures. I always can tell from just your Instagram feed that you've at least got a moment to catch your breath in the craziness.
Yeah. I've been really trying hard to stay home. There was a huge spike, obviously, in Los Angeles over the last several months with the pandemic. That's coming down a little bit, and I wanted to get out in the world because it's been quite a while. So my wife and I went to Descanso Gardens that I've talked about before on the podcast. It's just this huge park is a puny noun to describe what it is. It is this collection of all sorts of different trees and plants and kinds of gardens, and it's just this great wide open space where you can stay far away from other people. It's absolutely great to visit. There's this ancient forest section, which is very much like, to me, it is a combination of Endor and the woods in Twin Peaks. I always think of Ewoks emerging from the red curtains of the Black Lodge, right. And it's a very peaceful thought, strangely. But then the Descanso tradition, it's been like 5 months since we were there. And this time I was like, okay, when we were done at Descanso, I would also like to stop at Target because I just need some basics. But really, I wanted to go to the toy aisle. And so I had a beautiful, peaceful time at Descanso Gardens thinking about life and creativity and Star Wars. And then I went and bought Deluxe Jar Jar Binks, and it was great.
Nice. Deluxe. That's the one that's got the shield and everything?
Yeah. They had 3 of him. It was a really tough time at the toy aisle, Ken, because I was trying to contain myself. So they didn't have any vintage figures, which then I would have failed to contain myself. But they had Deluxe Jar Jar. They had Queel, the Black Series. They had Black Series Dark Ray. But they're also doing these new retro modern Masters of the Universe figures, and they had a Skeletor. So I needed Skeletor. So I got Skeletor and Jar Jar Binks, my new crime-fighting duo, on my shelf.
Wow, coming soon to Disney Plus. Give me that. That's the Deluxe Jar Jar, as I mentioned, I think last week's episode. I have that now, and it's just glorious, isn't it? Just that packaging, the look, everything about it. It's glorious.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was a good figure. I knew all the weapons came with, so it sort of honored him as, bumbling though he may be, still a brave warrior. I didn't realize how deluxe it was, like how much bigger than the other figures. That it's like, no, this is Deluxe Jar Jar, and I don't have it right in front of me, but I love the text on the back. Is like, he's clumsy, but he's got a good heart, and a lot of people were very cruel to him for a very long time. I'm paraphrasing, but that's sort of like it. That this whole figure is like justice for Jar Jar, its existence, and even the text on the back is like, yeah, we're owning it. Let's celebrate Jar Jar. We've been hard on this poor Gungan.
Hard indeed, yeah. It's so nice. I'm looking at it
so
right now.
It was hard to resist some of the others, but I was very happy to bring Jar Jar home. So that was my big Star Wars adventure this week, is getting that joyous moment in the toy aisle and seeing Jar Jar. And that's I would have been happy to find lots of different figures, but it was really Jar Jar that I was going into Target for. So mission accomplished. So those are my adventures, though. But how about you?
Yeah, razor blades and Jar Jar. Get that list.
Contact solution in Jar Jar, so pretty close.
Same thing. Yeah. For me, so I got back on the my brick building stream and was building the Rogue One era Y-wing set that comes with Radis, and it just has a lot of fun, and it comes with a Moroff minifig, and
Ooh.
I was just kind of discussing, and it hit me on air how much I just love Moroff, and this is a Star Wars adventure of just, you see this little minifig, you kind of connect with it. And then I was kind of reminiscing of when he was revealed, and I don't know, it's just our natural instinct. This is kind of where Speculate Responsibly was born out of, this type of stuff. You see that character and you're like, wow, what a hero of the rebellion. He's going to be in all the movie minutes and scenes, and he's barely there. And you could either get disappointed, which is fair, especially Moron fans, or you could just realize it's kind of part of this Star Wars tradition, and these little characters we love. And you and I talk a lot about it with the Kenner action figures, and what that kind of did in the 80s of Walrus Man has a figure. And it just kind of continues to be this little Star Wars, this little corner of Star Wars fun. And I was celebrating more off. It's a great little minifig, and you get to build a little backpack too. And, just love him as a character and love that he's there.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's a really good point, because I think I do I go on about the action figures, and there is, for me, like a sadness that that people don't have those same kind of adventures with the action figures that we kind of had to as kids, because there weren't any other adventures. So it was make them up or they don't exist. And I haven't really thought how much the minifigs really do fill that void, because you're having fun building a Lego, and they're like, who's Moroff? Why is he in a Y-wing? I got to make up a story to fit that. That's so great.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and I mean, it reminded me of the Lego reveal of the Falcon going to the Force Awakens, and that was kind of the first time we saw Tasu Leech, right? And
right.
Another example of your imagination. Understandably, is going to take it a lot of different places, and you get what you get. And I do love Conja Club and everything, and the Rathar sequence I've always said I don't like, but I just like that they're there. I like the characters that I'm most supportive. But so it's kind of the same thing. But anyways, it was my Star Wars adventure, just pausing to celebrate this little character that just kind of clumps along in one big scene.
Yeah. And personally, I have always taken Radiss's presence in the Y-Wing as some headcanon that he actually escaped in a Y-Wing.
I'm all there for that. Proof. So there you go. There's our Star Wars adventures, life adventures, busy times for all of us out there, not just here at ForceCenter, but are you listening? So it's nice to have those little moments of Star Wars joy. From there, we're going to go into Star Wars news, and surprise is the theme of the news. A lot of things just, boom, there it is. There's for you to enjoy and dig into. So we're going to start with this one. Our dreams are true. They've come true, Joseph. We've talked about it a lot, but the third Padme book from E.K. Johnston is on the way, called Queen's Hope. Man, this will complete the Padme series. Bittersweet, though this is what we've wanted. I'll just run through some of the details, and then we'll dive in here. It will run through the Clone War and up to, and perhaps I would take from some of the comments, past her death. It will involve Sabe and a secret mission. And yes, we'll get some politics with Palpatine. Joseph, all right, no secret. You and I love the first two books. And, we'll discuss here in a bit here. It's not for everyone necessarily, those books, but we're big champions of Padme, big champions of the books. And I should say, people that maybe don't enjoy the books as much as us doesn't mean you don't champion Padme. Just want to get that out there too. But all right, what are you thinking about this? How excited are you?
Oh, I'm thrilled. This is one of those things that I think you and I both really started to get excited for as we discussed those two Padme books. I think we both loved the first one for lots of reasons we're going to talk about, and then the second one did such a great job of telling her story. Kind of the first half of the book, it is mostly Padme's story, but then it becomes interwoven with the events of Phantom Menace. And then that made us, I think, really, really excited for the possibility and the hope of a Revenge of the Sith sort of era of. And it sounds like from this interview that it is definitely going to be a specific adventure that Padme has during the Clone Wars, but in that same in a masterful way, weave in some different perspectives on Revenge of the Sith, which I think is it's exciting for lots and lots of different reasons. One, just because it completes this trilogy. Now we'll have a Padme book that kind of up to a point corresponds with each of the films. With obviously the Queen's Peril being inside the events of Phantom Menace partially, and then Queen's Shadow is setting her up for her, becoming a senator, which in my mind is kind of, Attack the Clones, and then this is very Queen's Hope will be very Revenge of the Sith. So I'm excited about it for so many different reasons, and I think maybe it's because this era of Padme, even though we got to see her during the Clone Wars a lot in the Clone Wars, these books go inside her head, inside her heart, inside her perspective, inside her soul, and I think that's just really needed for Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, that's you said it where this the second book, Queen's Peril, goes in around Phantom Menace, and I think just really got our gears churning on what you could do with that. And yeah, to have the 1, 2, 3 collection of the movies and the books kind of in and around them, that's exciting. And there's a great little interview with EK on StarWars.com. Not about 2 or 3 questions, but great stuff. And I want to highlight some of that here. She touched on getting to write Anakin as a love interest, careening towards a fall. It's kind of my summary of it there. And she says, "quote Everything is coming up Anakin and Milhouse during this period." The first thing is I don't want to focus necessarily again on Anakin. This is Padme's story, Joseph, but I thought that was a great way to look at Anakin during this time and how maybe Padme can recognize about that, because EK kind of explains like, look, he's good at fighting, and he's fighting, and he's got power, and he's kind of almost having fun doing this crazy adventure thing, and the love of his life is with him, and he's married to her, and things, like Anakin might be looking around going, why is everyone upset? This is great. Like someone celebrating the, success during the pandemic, which is okay. But like, it seems weird. But Anakin seems unaware maybe. And so that kind of, that excited me, of just like a part of the book's approach, and part of what you and I have even discussed on Padme and Padme's place in that relationship, and what she can see and what she can build hope from, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I loved everything that E.K. Johnston said in this interview, but I really love this particular take of her really saying that, Anakin is not the main character of this book. He is Padme's love interest. So it's a fun, different way to see Anakin, and I think a really necessary way to see Padme's relationship with Anakin, and have the emphasis not be, how did Anakin's feelings about Padme lead to his fall, but what are Padme as her own character's feelings toward Anakin. And I love this contrast that E.K. Johnston is kind of pointing out between them, specifically bullet pointing that Anakin is good at fighting, that, he's married to the love of his life. And this, this wound from losing Qui-Gon, losing his mom, is sort of fulfilled. And it is a romantic love. And he's thrilled the way anybody is, at the beginning of a romantic relationship with someone you're really, really attracted to on multiple levels. But then also that great, we just discussed it on our most recent episode of the Clone Wars report, Anakin really likes straight lines.
Yeah.
He likes, as she said, he likes just a clear fight of, I know who the good guys are, I know who the bad guys are. And really pulling that out, there's that through line in the Clone Wars episodes that we just watched about Anakin always being willing to do what needs to be done and wanting to be able to see things as a straight line, and how much conflict that creates for Padme, who understands nuance and complexity, and understands that problems are complex. And I think what she's pushing back on in this era during the war is not just wanting to stop a war because war bad, peace good, but recognizing that there is a massive amount of complexity and nuance and pieces that aren't adding up. And what great contrast between Anakin of like, I'm a fighter and these are the bad guys, so I'm going to beat them and save all the people I love. And Padme going like, but are they the bad guys? Who's the bad guy? Why does the good guy want us to do stuff that's not great? And like all that stuff.
Yeah, that's a great starting point to dive into this troubling period of Padme's life, or at least the one that's coming up. And the fact that this book will it seemingly touch on its own little story with the secret mission. And I like Sabe as a character. I think E.K. Johnston's also done a great job of developing the Handmaidens, but particularly Sabe as a character. And E.K. even mentioned some of the stuff in the Darth Vader comic where Sabe recently popped up, all the stuff going on there. So that's a great starting point. But I'm really excited, Joseph, about just like some of the big moments of Padme's Clone Wars career, especially that you and I did in the rewatch, to get Padme's takes on those moments too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this. I like the description of what the actual plot is going to be. That it is a specific adventure for Padme, and as you were saying, kind of hints that it will go past this one specific event and shed some light on Revenge of the Sith. That is kind of, yeah, we're both inferring that from what we read. That's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like officially clearly stated, but that's both what we were taken from it. But I also like this story that it's going to be Sabe having to fill in for Padme, and Sabe having to see the horror of the political theater of the war up close.
Yeah.
That's really, really great, and I think that we could get a lot from, you know, in the Clone Wars. Padme definitely Animated series. Padme definitely has a lot of problems with what's going on, and she's pushing for the Republic to stay the Republic and be humanitarian and have policies that lead toward empathy, not just anger and war. She's trying to have meetings with separatists like Mina Bonteri, and she is trying to do what is right. But by the time we see her in Revenge of the Sith, she has really soured on
Mm-hmm.
the war and the Republic, and I think maybe this is going to be a piece of that. Of if Sabe sees up close how badly the government has been corrupted by the war, and that causes a breaking point between Padme and Sabe, that seems like it would be like this great concrete moment to have a real wake up call from Padme of like, things aren't just bad; they're truly deeply a problem beyond even the war itself.
Broken.
Yeah.
Indeed. The next couple thoughts here kind of roll into one for me. VK talked about Padme, even in death, kind of representing hope and touching lives in the ways that those lives have maybe even yet to realize. She ran through kind of Mon Mothma and Bail and so many of the characters that get to interact with Padme and have some history to draw upon, and with her gone, what that will do to them. And that there was this big focus on Padme's strength and hope in spite of the tragedy, swirling around, providing comfort for EK, who is a big Padme fan. That's clear in the writings and just some of the past interviews. And so we all know what's coming here. We all know, even if whether or not the book touches upon it or goes past. Again, Joseph's right. We're just kind of inferring this and maybe even strongly hoping that go in and past Revenge of the Sith. Will it provide comfort for us, Joseph? That's one of the questions I have. How, when this book closes, I'm sure I'll still feel the weight of the tragedy, but just at least feel like, what a life, you know?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be bittersweet. I love this part of the interview that E.K. Johnson sort of is admitting to wrestling with her own sense of hope via Padme, and
Yeah.
realizing that the story of this character is that Padme really sets out to make a difference, and there are moments where she succeeds, but in the big tragedy of this part of Star Wars, she does not succeed on making the difference that she sets out to make. But that idea of hope in Star Wars, that even if you don't you don't make the difference that you set out to make, that doesn't mean that you haven't made a difference. I think that's just like a really beautiful idea in general. I think it's a key part to Padme's story, and I think it's probably where some of the hope in Queen's Hope is going to come from, if there is elements of this book that remind us how vital a character she is moving forward. That she has this extremely important legacy as the mother of the Skywalker twins. That
Right.
We see Padme constantly in Luke and Leia, and seeing Padme as a progenitor of the rebellion. Right? We have those cut scenes in Revenge of the Sith, but I think this book could really pull out. If she had not died, she would have been right there with Bail, maybe even with her foot on the gas harder. With how fast the rebellion grew.
Right. Yeah. To dive into all that kind of stuff and the tragedy of her fall and just kind of everything. I'm thinking about the Vader comic about just everyone. Sabe is attached now, and how the Amidalans, as they call themselves, which is that Padme it lives on. We know that, but the tragedy of her not being able to understand it or feel it maybe in that moment. But it's also part of what I love about the character, because she's just so focused on what she wants. Again, no doubt you and I are excited about this book, but out of this particular book, what are we looking forward to the most?
Yeah, I think for me it's three things. One, just the biggest one is Padme's perspective on her relationship with Anakin, her personal love of him, her attraction to him, her fears about the marriage, her fears about the war, her hopes for what happens after the war. We can glean a little bit of that from the movies, from Clone Wars, but these books have really gone into Padme's heart, her soul, and we've really spent time on her perspective, and it's such a vital part of the Star Wars story, and I want to feel her perspective on her relationship with Anakin. Um, the relationship with Sabe and the political corruption, I already rambled about that. I'm very excited about that. And then the possibility of a fresh perspective on her death. That's always, going to be a challenging thing. It's a challenging part of Revenge of the Sith. It is. I don't know if I want an answer.
Right.
I might be okay with that to exactly how she died, because I don't personally just take the word of the medical analysis droid.
Right.
And she died with hope. That is such an important part of her character, and I think often gets lost in our discussions of, should that have been handled better in the movie? How could it have been handled? What's our fan theories about what actually happened to her? Do we trust the medical analysis droid? We can get into all those kind of what happened, but I'm excited for a fresh emotional perspective of she died with hope,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's absolutely a tragedy. And in story, how can it be not, I don't want to say make sense, but I've been banging. I know I've said it in ForceCenter a few times here, but just the idea of like we can get so lost in conspiracy theories because it makes it easier to not face the truth or the harsh reality in front of you sometimes, right? I enjoy good conspiracy theory, everybody, but sometimes I think that's what it is. You can just hold that shield in front of you and say, nope, uh, the thing that is affecting me isn't happening. It's just, and so I'm all for a good Padme death theory, but I also think what you just described is kind of there. It's this horrible tragedy, but she still managed to die with hope, to pass with hope. And if EK can kind of dig into that, and I'm with you too, I don't need it explicitly stated, but I've just been, and again, I don't want to say make sense, but just like these books have been doing such a good job of just, like you said, Joseph, just providing her perspective, providing her point of view. And I was watching it was so this before this news dropped. It just one of those things that just popped up in your YouTube algorithms. It was I think it was about Revenge of the Sith featurette, because they didn't do the full docs for episodes 2 or 3, and it was the featurette of Natalie Portman describing Padme during this time and why she liked. And there was just some great stuff in there of Padme, of Natalie Portman, one and the same. Just describing her just like she's a character that has to react to a lot of the plot and how it affects her, and goes on. And I didn't make notes. I didn't know this book was going to be announced 2 days later. I should have gone made some notes. And to see what Natalie Portman put in there as a performer, and if you can sync up to some of what was going on with the character, and if E.K. Johnston can kind of connect those ideas, how the plot, how the story, how the characters affected her, and how she had to grow from that or deal with that, or her point of view on that kind of stuff. That could be particularly really powerful for me if this book hits it.
Yeah, no, and I think it has a ton of opportunities to do that. And E.K. Johnston is obviously uh, somebody who loves and understands Padme, and I'm sure has watched every moment of
Yeah.
cutscenes and Natalie Portman interviews. And it is, I think, going to be constructed out of much knowledge and much love and much intuition.
Final thing on this here, being a little honest, I mentioned it there, but not everyone we know, not just talking about listeners, but even some people that you and I are close in this space, don't dislike these books. They just yeah, okay, great. And it isn't that they're technically thinking that YA category. They're just it's there, and it's movie stuff I've already seen, and not everything's for everybody. But you and I, just from the beginning, have really enjoyed these books. What's our sales pitch? How can we get people to come to the light side? And I'm kidding, but I'm not.
Yeah, I think that these first two books are not books about stories. They're not. They're absolutely, there are plots and things happen, and there are conflicts and they are resolved, but that's not the appeal of it. It's not what happens. It's not the plot. The power of it is the examination of the character and the thematic elements of Star Wars that Padme represents and kind of carries on her shoulders. If you enjoy the story of the prequels in particular, being the fall of a government that seems to mean well being destroyed from the inside, Padme is the guardian trying to prevent that, even when she doesn't realize that yet. And to me, I think that's the story of these books, is that Padme is in a lot of ways, to me, the moral compass of the saga. But in particular, she is the moral compass of how do you make ideals into political realities. She spends the movies, the Clone Wars animated series, and these books, she's got a blaster in hand and she's willing to do what needs to be done. E.K. Johnston gives her that great quote of like, I know how to handle evil. I've done that before. I shot it with a blaster. Other problems are much more complicated and muddy. And how do we handle them? And by seeing her sense of responsibility and her sense of cooperation and negotiation and her sense of, in order to do the best good politically, you need to make certain compromises. Other compromises you can't make. You have to, as a person, balance, what your needs are as a person with what is the need or the greater good. How can I serve society? And I think all that becomes really interesting because Lucas created a galaxy that is blatantly political. And it is easy to sometimes just look at as politics is just the thing that smacks the domino, and then all of the thrill and the fun and the excitement happens. Padme is that crucial domino,
Right.
and I think she is a real examination in the Clone Wars animated series, but in particular in these books of, for somebody like Lucas who distrusts large organizations, she's an example of it's messy, it's not fun, it's slow, but this is the kind of work you have to do politically in order to make ideals come true.
That moral compass term you've used so well, it just really all that ties up to me everything that you're describing, and how these books kind of dive into that in this way that we love at ForceCenter, which is taking the movies, taking the stories that you have, and they obviously are going to inspire thoughts, headcanons, questions. And the prequels are full of a lot of questions of but why, but hey, and I don't know. And that doesn't necessarily work for me. And I think we love at ForceCenter going in and finding those little corners and going, but here's a way of in both how it was presented and here's an idea of why it might work for you. You describing Padme as the domino, it's really accurate, and something that might have been missed back in the day, particularly in bigger YouTube reviews of the Phantom Menace and all that kind of stuff. I love that EK is of that generation who was inspired by this character, moved by this character, in ways at the time clearly more than you and I would have, because this she saw herself in this character in so many ways. And having the ability to go in and say, I have those questions too, or some of those things don't necessarily work for me, but let's lay it all down and find out how it works within the story that was there. Find out all these points along the way that tie into the main themes that George was presenting, that Star Wars is about, and this character that is a through line who, fell during this, who fell at the end of this, who should have been rewarded and instead got death, and how a fan can sit down and become a professional writer and a professional storyteller and just say, I'm gonna answer these questions. I'm just inspired by that too, and I feel it's like a EK's journal in a way. I have Padme thoughts, and I'm outside of the Star Wars story, moved by that as well. And that's part of the reason I love these books too.
Yeah, absolutely. The two other things I'll throw out in a shorter fashion is I think it's just for me, these books are a great way to celebrate that she is a totally her own character with her own internal life, but also just, if you're looking for a way in, she is the mother of the Skywalker twins. She is just as important to their legacy as Vader. She's just as important to the truth of who they are. So it's great to celebrate Padme as a character, but you can also look at these books as a study of where did the Skywalker twins come from. And then the final thing for me is just the handmaidens are cool. They've
Yeah.
always been cool, and this really dives into the like, what if you had a team of best friends who kind of look like you, who kick ass in every possible imaginable way?
Yeah, and it's I go back and watch those movies and I have more of a like looking in the background of the handmaidens and wondering if the conversations are still going on. You know, the ones in the books and all the little dramas, the relationship dramas, the successes, the joys, all those things. It creates a second life for the background of those movies there. So, and same with the Panaka stuff of just like we know where Panaka gets to, becoming a moth and all that kind of stuff, and where that begins and how it just makes sense to me. She's such a good writer and loves this character, and it's just been a joy to experience it. So, that book, oh my gosh, did I not write when it's coming out? Oh, there it is, November 2nd, 2021. It will be available, and Queen's Peril will be released in paperback on September 8th. Next story here. Another surprise. Star Wars Hunters, the new game coming to Nintendo Switch. For all you Switch owners, you'll get to battle in a galactic arena with this new game, Star Wars Hunters, a competitive arena combat game. This game is set after the fall of the Galactic Empire, will include many classes of fighters like bounty hunters, stormtroopers, and heroes of the rebellion. So here's hoping like Vober Dan's uncle is in there, or Vober Dan himself. A short clip, like about 30 seconds. We got to see a Wookiee warrior, which is cool, and a red lightsaber wielding character that we don't quite know anything about. Yep. This game is playing around canon, but not in canon as far as we know right now. So let's start the discussion there, Joseph, about this. You and I love Battlefront 2, which is similar to me, where it's like, it's totally a canon adjacent game and just go crazy, kids, with all the things you know and love in canon. So what's the appeal of these canon inspired games, and maybe particularly this game, Star Wars Hunters?
Yeah, I mean, I think I like the freedom of being sort of canon adjacent, because especially like this, where it looks like it's set in a very specific time period, that it's after the fall of the Empire. So I think they're going to get some fun out of that, a little bit of that sort of Mandalorian, uh, promo summary that was out before the actual show about like it's this time where there's chaos and you don't really know who's got the power yet. That looked like they'll probably have some fun with that and kind of determining who these characters are.
Right.
And that makes it just kind of wild and fun and free. But then it's also just as fun in knowing something like this that's clearly making up some new things, like new characters, new arena of like, even if this game is a button mashing fight game,
Mm-hmm.
that's never going to be canon. If some elements are popular, if that Wookiee warrior is insanely popular, he's going to end up in Mandalorian season 6, or, if this arena is insanely popular, it's going to pop up in its original state in the High Republic or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that too. The freedom to kind of play around is the playground for me, and that's where the spirit of those type of games, as much like obviously love Iden Versio and her story in Battlefront 2, but also just firing up the game and taking Rey to Felucia to fight Anakin. I mean, okay, let's do it. Like
Yeah.
it's just kind of fun. So we'll see a little bit more of this game. We'll get some information soon. But the final question for you, Joseph, you and I over the years, we've bought our gaming systems. We love to sit down and waste days playing games. Is this going to be a Switch buy for you?
It is going to be a check on my Switch to make sure everything works, because I do have a Nintendo Switch that I bought to play Breath of the Wild in particular, and then I fell off of playing Breath of the Wild because I was losing way too much time.
Yeah.
I almost did not get fully prepared for a convention because I was just going to, instead of doing a stand up set at the convention, I was just going to be like, and then I made some mushrooms and then I found some pants and like, okay, I got to take a break. So I do have my Switch so I'm going to power it up for this. And I'm really, really curious of exactly what this is, because it looks like there's also some like mobile version. So, it looks like it's going to be kind of some combination of Fortnite, Mortal Kombat, and Masters of Terrascasi, where it's just weird Star Wars characters beat the hell out of each other. So I am attracted by the fact that it is not a epic, spend thousands and thousands of hours inside this world, because it means I can kind of bop in, check it out, enjoy the new characters, and successfully walk away as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on the possible of it being mobile. Looking, I'm in scanning the article right now just to make sure it's not just Nintendo Switch Watch or something else. No, it's going to be in the App Store, Google Play, all that kind of stuff. Anyways, that's intriguing to me. If I can take anything with me and I'm in the doctor's office and I need just 5 minutes to punch a stormtrooper, like that can be. So other than that, probably not going to do the old switch by myself because I like you, Joseph, have to be careful. Last night I sat down for a quick dinner and it was like, you know what? I do kind of need to find some herbs and flowers in Red Dead Redemption 2. All right, and 2 hours later. So yes,
It happens.
it happens. Surprise, we got more on the Boba Fett comic. This got teased, was it last week? Cool little photo, Boba Fett from Marvel, like, hey, something's coming. Well, now we know it is a 5-issue mini series called War of the Bounty Hunters from Charles Soule and artist Steve McNiven. All right, here's a story pitch. I'm really summarizing. Boba Fett didn't go straight to Jabba the Hutt with Han Solo frozen in carbonite. Begin scene. Described as an epic, crime epic, and a crossover with the other Star Wars lines right now. Charles Soule says this builds into something much bigger. So, just kind of general thoughts here, Joseph. I will admit to this publicly. You had to remind me that this news was revealed. I just am blind to Boba Fett in Star Wars news dumps. I just skip over it. I do enjoy the character. I enjoy Morrison's interpretation around Mandalorian. But I skip over it. So I'll start with you, sir. What are you looking for from War of the Bounty Hunters, Boba Fett style?
Yeah, there's a couple things that I'm really intrigued by. I'm really excited to see Charles Soule's characterization of Boba Fett. I've really enjoyed all of his work in both Light of the Jedi, High Republic, and his comic books have been pretty consistently my favorites. I think he's got a really great way of taking all of the evidence of stuff that we know about characters and events in tying them all together in a way that's still kind of putting his stamp on the characters and making them fresh. So just like I was really interested before Mandalorian season 2 about how can we tie all these cool threads of Boba Fett's past between being clone, kind of Mandalorian, definitely bounty hunter, definitely hates Jedi, definitely has something to prove, definitely has an ego, all that stuff, and tie it into this really resonant character. And I think we got that in Mandalorian season 2. I think we're gonna get that in Book of Boba Fett. But I'm super excited to see Charles Soule's take on that in this particular era. And the pitch is really about he didn't go straight to Jabba with Han Solo, partially because there are problems and he loses Solo.
Mhm.
So that makes it this really interesting motivational question for Boba Fett of, is getting Solo back about pride for Boba Fett? Is it about a personal issue with Solo? Is it about what the payoff means for Fett of like, I get this job, I get this money, and then I can kick back for a little while? Like, why is it so important to Fett? I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and so Charles Soule, I just trust him so much as a Star Wars storyteller. I mean, I have for a bit, but the Light of the Jedi just really put a fine point on. Just wow, this guy really tells some stories I love. But the Vader stuff was amazing. His comic book work is kind of what he's known for prior to Light of the Jedi. Obviously, you touched on why this appeals to me as someone who skips over Boba Fett stuff in the news. Is the depth that I think he'll bring to this character. And there's a lot going on. This crime epic. I grew up, I guess, loving bounty hunters like a lot of Star Wars kids. They're part of the galaxy, and I do love them. And I think they're all kind of cool in their own way. And not to put too much praise on scoundrels there, but I do kind of like them. But in the last couple of years, just finding myself less and less pulled in by their storytelling. I just don't like the current bounty hunters comic series going on for Marvels. It's just not clicking for me. If you out there listening love it, more power to you. It's not grabbing me in. Boba Fett's in that. It's falling flat for me. So to take that, I was initially like, okay, Boba Fett wore but if Soule's there and can tell, like you said, grab what's there and put it out there, put it in there in the page and present Boba Fett in a new way for me. But but it's the way, not the new way, but like Boba Fett as he is. Then I'll be okay with it. And the idea of he didn't go straight to Jabba, but what really happened, that gets into dangerous territory for me as a fan, where I'm like, all right, it's got to really sync up. I got to watch Return of the Jedi and feel like all the stuff you presented to me did happen, that it made sense and it wasn't too crazy. And I can get a little grumpy on that. That's one thing I admit as a Star Wars fan. So I'm excited to see if they can live up to my silly standards, Joseph.
Oh no, I'm there with you with the standards. I think feel a little bit more like, yeah, I'm happy with here's various adventures that the characters had in between the original trilogy movies, but I think I am cautious about, like, I don't need every little beat explained
Yeah.
kind of thing for me. And I haven't read that Bounty Hunters comic book yet, so I don't have any opinion on it myself, but I think, yeah, the trick with the bounty hunters is if they're in something a little bit, it's really fun to just have scary, surprising weirdos with awesome, strange weapons. But if you're going to spend a lot of time with them, I feel like for me, you do have to dig down and you have to find out, well, what motivates Dengar? How is that different from what motivates Bosk? All that kind of stuff. The other thing about this arc that I am intrigued by, and I think the reason that it's crossing over and Charles Soule is saying it builds into something much bigger, is this idea that not only does Fett lose Solo, but that everybody wants Solo for different reasons.
Right.
That the Empire and Vader and different criminal organizations and other bounty hunters. So this feels to me like, yeah, it's being announced as Boba Fett, and we're all like, yeah, Boba Fett. But this honestly feels like a celebration of Han Solo. It feels like Han Solo as the Maltese Falcon. Like,
Yeah.
frozen Han Solo is the scoundrel MacGuffin, the thing that everybody wants. And I hope that he doesn't come out of the carbonite. Some of the preview pages, it looks like there's something wrong with the carbonite, and that's what kicks off the adventure. I personally don't want that. I'll read it and accept it and try to understand if he comes out of the carbonite.
Right.
I don't want him out of the carbonite because I think it's really interesting to see, like, even in carbonite, Han Solo causes just massive amounts of trouble is really intriguing to me.
It's like a weird memorial.
Yeah.
He took money from me. He owes me this. That could be kind of fun. Yeah. Well, we'll look for it soon. We don't cover the comics as much here on ForceCenter because sometimes it's just the sheer volume of them can be a thing. I'm trying to catch up with the Afra comic right now. I was reading about 3 or 4 of them last night, enjoying that stuff. But we'll look for this one, and much like we did with the Rise of Kylo Ren comic series, we'll give this a ForceCenter once-over. All right. Surprise! Secrets of the Sith coming from Inside Editions. Oh, this is great. Inside Editions will be releasing a follow-up to Secrets of the Jedi, a book we enjoyed here. As I said, called Secrets of the Sith. Mark Sumerak will write it, illustrated by Sergio Gomez Sylvan. The book will have those interactive features we kind of love from Inside Editions, the pop-ups, the little booklets, and the lift-up flap inserts. Feel like you're 11 all over again, just looking behind pages. It will cover Maul, Ventress, Vader, Kylo Ren, and include thoughts from Palpatine himself. Joseph, what are we looking forward to from this look at the dark side?
Yeah, I'm so happy about this, partially because I really, really love that Secrets of the Jedi book. I had said I won't go on about it, why we're recommending it from Inside Editions with that discount, FC35. But if you haven't checked it out, it's, on one hand, it is that sense of discovery. It comes with a little Orabesh key, so you can take it out and compare it to all the famous quotes from Jedi, or you can just kind of feel like, oh, Mace Windu said that, and it has this many letters. Is it the party's over? It's got that sense, like you said, of being a kid again and being let in on secrets. But it's written from Luke's perspective, and I think this is not a deep, hardcore, all the canon answers.
Mm-hmm.
But for anybody who wrestled with Luke in The Last Jedi, this is written from basically the perspective of Rey just left the island. I realize that I do need to act. It is important that the Jedi continue. And then it's all this fun information, but it's presented from this like, oh yeah, this matters. So A, that makes that book cool. And B, to know that this one is written from Palpatine's perspective very much feels like this is written in quotation marks while Palpatine is hanging from a claw in Exegol. So I think this could be really great from just it's not just, it's going to be just the information, right? To summarize things of, here are the dark side powers. Here's how this person lived and died. But it's Palpatine's perspective, which means we'll probably get like, here's who deserves to be a Sith, who just dabbled in the dark side but never fully understood it. It'd probably be his take on Snoke and his
Yeah.
successful seduction for a while of Kylo Ren. It could possibly get into some interesting stuff like Secrets of the Jedi did about Sith powers, about clinging to life unnaturally, or the Force steel that he does to Ben and Rey. It's got some potential to have not like, wow, here's some canon answers, but just some kind of fun stuff from Palpatine's perspective, as well as being just a great little, friendly for all ages encyclopedia of powers and names across generations.
I hadn't really even thought of what you just said of just this could be Palpatine on a claw going dictation, please. That's really fast, and I don't want to lock myself into that if it's something else. But yeah, I'm joking, but it's like if this is like Palpatine's burn book. Dooku, easy to fool.
Oh yeah, and Asajj Ventress didn't really. She was pretty powerful and she did all this stuff, but she never really deserved it. And like, I mean, I saw some discussion already online of like, well, technically, are these characters Sith and that, and like, obviously the book is just, it's a stronger title to say Secrets of the Sith, not Secrets of the Sith, parentheses, and other dark side. But I think that will all be taken care of because from Palpatine's perspective, Sith is a way of life. A Darksider should be a Sith, and I think it's going to have some fun perspectives on, like I said, who earns it, or Snoke didn't call himself a Sith, but he was because he was my puppet.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm now super excited. And again, this is like, what do we? I don't want to suddenly. You and I love Palpatine in a way. We've always talked about this. But we love that he's the villain, and we love what he represents, and we love what we can get out of him, and we just love Ian McDiarmid just chewing up scenery like a champ. So I'm not saying I suddenly want to understand Palpatine in a better way. I don't want that. I want him to be who he is. But what do you want to gain? What do you hope to gain from like insights about the Sith by the Sith?
I think just that perspective of megalomania, right? That perspective of the dark side is correct. The galaxy is chaos, and embracing and causing the chaos is the only honest and true way. And the Jedi are naive liars and hypocrites. And here's the best way to access that power. And from that perspective, he's also going to have to admit, without actually acknowledging it, a huge amount of failure, right? Because if it's written from the perspective of he's hanging, half dead on a hook in Exegol, he's going to have to say, well, yeah, but okay, Vader failed. And I guess Asajj saw the light. And I guess I never really could fully control them all. And he went on to do a bunch of stuff that I didn't really like.
Yeah.
So I think it could have this fun contrast that we get from villains of like their viewpoint is, I am the best, I am unstoppable. And then I did fail a lot, but here are all my excuses.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a playbook of evil, and just exposing it as evil. And Palpatine's burn book is coming soon. And look, we joke about, we have that code FC 35. We can joke about that, but Joseph and I, when we were approached by that, it's like, it's something that we read these books, and we like these books, and we like this company. We think they're just great kind of pieces just to accompany the Star Wars story we all love there. So that is something there. Look for that. We'll definitely cover that when it comes out. Final headline of the day. It's again, to me, another surprise. And this came a little bit earlier in the week, but the Rian Johnson trilogy still on! Exclamation point. I mean, still on? Question mark. So here's this, and there's probably some other things that came out of this we could dive into, even on a more, almost on a deep dive level. We're going to focus on this kind of this headline. Last week, author and columnist Soraya Wilson conducted an interview with Rian Johnson. She also did one with Daisy Ridley. And again, like I said, a lot to pull out of those things because she's been tweeting about the interviews, saying here's this and here's that. And I felt a little dumb. I was like, oh, let me go look at the interviews. I can't find them. So I guess they're still coming. Joseph, you couldn't find them either, right? I'm not crazy.
No. I did spend some time kind of reading up on her tweets because I saw several and missed a few, and I don't know exactly where or when the article or maybe the full video interviews are coming, but I'm very excited to see them in their full state as well as her tweets.
Yeah, she tweeted the big one that got all the headlines and a lot of attention, fortunately and unfortunately for her, because that's the way of the Star Wars Twitterverse sometimes. She says that Ryan Johnson has not left the Star Wars galaxy, that he is still working on the quote Ryan Johnson trilogy, but there's no production or release timeline. So I'm starting the discussion here, Joseph. This might be a weird one, but how do we feel about this news in 2021? Because this was a 2017 news thing, and it's a fair question. And you and I, we do love The Last Jedi. There's obviously things we can always dive into. I think we're generally fans of Ryan, but I'll start there. I almost had a shrug in 2021.
Yeah, I am not dispassionate about it. I feel like this is a moment where I get to feel like some of my Jedi friends, my Jedi heroes, and like I just feel sort of at peace about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If it is meant to be and it works for Rian Johnson and Lucasfilm, it will be, and if not, it won't be. And I'm excited that it's still, moving forward on some level. But yeah, so I hope that I'm capturing what I feel. If they announce tomorrow that it was yes, and in fact we're doing this one right after Patty Jenkins, or it would be even if it was, Rian Johnson's on board with it, we're going to release these on Disney Plus, and they're coming tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. I would be thrilled. I'm excited to see whatever Rian Johnson wants to do or tell. I just don't feel caught up in the in any sort of rush or speculation game about it. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's the biggest thing that's changed. You are describing your feelings a little bit better than me just saying shrug, but that's where it starts for me of okay, just, if it happens, it happens. And I gotta be there. And I think there's a little bit of I don't want to go through it again with his name, no fault of his own, just inspiring so much of the conversations, even though I'm a little less involved online these days. There's part even on some friends levels where I'm like, I just don't want to deal with these texts right now of his movies. And that's not fair to Ryan. That's not fair to Lucasfilm, not fair to Star Wars fans. Cause I'm like you, Joseph, tomorrow, breaking news. It's coming. These 3 movies, or even just one is on the way. We're going to discuss it. I'm going to be excited. And I think that's just where I'm at. Let me see it. Let it actually happen. In development is one thing, and a lot of time, it's crazy to think a lot of time has passed since it was first announced. But again, Benioff and Weiss had films back then. It was a different time, and the business model has changed too for Disney. So that's probably changed is some of the excitement I have for it.
Yeah. I think for me, yes, there's after Last Jedi, there was just such vitriol against Last Jedi, and then after Rise of Skywalker, I feel like sometimes there is almost pro Last Jedi, level of, totally understandable if people didn't like Rise of Skywalker, didn't like how it resolved, but I think sometimes there can even be this energy that Rian Johnson gets Star Wars in a way that other people don't. So yeah, a lot of it is just for me. I think maybe that's where some of my piece comes in of like, I think he's an amazing filmmaker. I love Last Jedi. I want to sit in a place of joy with those opinions,
Yeah.
and don't want to get caught up in a maelstrom around that. I think for me, there's always the ongoing question of what would the trilogy be.
Right.
But for me, there's also just this big picture change in the landscape of what Star Wars is. My reaction to it changes a lot by what is the goal of the Star Wars trilogy he's making. Is it the next big in actual cinemas Star Wars trilogy, or is it existing at a time where in the movie theater, here's Patty Jenkins' take on Star Wars. Here's what Taika Waititi loves about Star Wars. Here's a creator we haven't even heard of yet. Here's what they love about Star Wars. And then also here's what Rian Johnson, his take on Star Wars. It's a really big difference if his trilogy is just one of the many pieces of Star Wars, storytelling that you can get at the buffet versus this is the direction for Star Wars heading into the future, which is, I think, the way we kind of thought it might be when it was first announced.
Yeah, 100% right. And now to me, that's a little less pressure for the project for me, as a fan, because now again, the buffet you and I always talk about now has chicken tenders, tacos, quesadillas, a lot of stuff, lots on there to choose from. Gosh, I'm hungry again. So yeah, I have hopes for this one day seeing the light, and to your point too of just like the last year or so, I think a lot of people that had some big, wonderful shields around the Last Jedi then started to use those shields as weapons against Rise of Skywalker, and that didn't sit well with me, to be just vaguely blunt, I guess if I could say. So yeah, there's part of that too. But again, that's not his fault. That's not any potential project's fault. We'll take it as it is. And yes, I'm excited. I'm excited when it happens, and that's kind of where I'll leave it there. As far as hopes for what it actually could be, yeah, this beyond the legacy characters in a new corner of the galaxy. High Republic has changed my views on what that could be, because it's just done such a good job of taking the Galaxy I know and presenting it 200 years earlier, quite frankly, just on a base level. I'm like really into it in a way that I did not think I would be, because I am a give me Han, Luke, Leia, some stormtroopers. That is me over and over again, and it's allowed me to look at Star Wars a little differently. So if Ryan can find that in some other time period, I'd be up for the ride now.
Yeah, absolutely. I really think that ever since this was talked about, it was just it's going to not have any legacy characters. It's going to be set in a different place or time. That I think if and when this trilogy comes, it is really going to be sort of the cinematic High Republic. It's going to have that level of freedom where you really don't know what's going to happen to the characters next. And the final thing that I'll say about me, sort of taking any sort of internet discussion out of it, I think that Rian Johnson is a creator who really blends great pop culture storytelling sensibilities with really being an artist who explores what he wants to, and also always has something in his films that is personal, meaningful to him. So I'm really excited to just see, free of any legacy characters, any specific timeline, what does Star Wars mean to him? How does that connect to him on a deeply personal level? And how does he turn that into a thrilling adventure serial is really fascinating.
I'm right there with you on that. And when the interviews actually come out, again, some intriguing things about Ryan's views on Rey and Kylo, some stuff with Daisy Ridley. We'll absolutely dive on into it. I'm happy for Soraya Wilson. I also felt bad when she had to blockchain 74,000 people, to mute them and everything. It just, what a time. What a time.
Yeah.
What a time. So that is our look at Star Wars news. A big week of news indeed. A lot of things on the way. Before we take a break and get to your questions, we're going to do our ForceCenter Recommends, an audiobook we think you should try out on us. Joseph.
That's right. We're going to the High Republic. We are recommending Into the Dark by Claudia Gray, one of the next books in the High Republic series. We're going to be digging into that soon. So we want to invite you to dig in too with this audiobook.
That's right. Download your free audiobook today at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audio book. Just kind of scratching the surface on that one, about 100 pages in it, but having a great time with that book too. So can't wait to discuss that here on ForceCenter. Also can't wait to answer your questions, which is what we're going to do after this break. Stick around for more ForceCenter.